Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Raspass, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. These are one of my favourite ones every month because I get to chat with the lovely Larissa Halls about all things mindset. Good morning, darling.
Hello, how you going?
I am well, so great to have you here again. And this whole subject that we're going to be talking about today is one that fascinates me. And I'm sure it's something that a lot of our listeners think about as well. And it's that concept of the timetable of success. You know, when's it going to happen? When should it happen? What it is anyway. And I know some of the meaty pieces that we're going to be biting down into are looking at comparison and avoiding rushing and talking about trust and what needs to give if we are focusing in one area of our life, that the inevitable fact that there has to be a letting up in another area. And I reckon a real good one is the realistic expectations that we put upon ourselves. So I reckon this is a conversation that has to be had.
It absolutely is. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, I know that you've got a bit of a story that we were talking about earlier about particular athletes and the small window that they have in particular when it comes to reaching success. So let's talk about that first and see how that parallels or rather is in stark contrast to the way that we can approach things as entrepreneurs.
I'm doing a little bit of work at the moment at an athlete performance centre, and one of the athletes who's now moved to Sydney, I live in Queensland, came in the other day just to pop in and say hi. She's training, with the Australian Institute of Sport. She's an elite athlete, goes to the Commonwealth Games, and my colleague who I was chatting to, he used to be one of her coaches, and he's coaching another guy at the moment, and they were talking about whether he has what it takes to make it in that world, whether is he going to get to Com Games or reach for the Olympics. And she brought up some really, really good points. The thing about athletes is usually some athletes are starting to push the limits on this, but usually there is a very small window that they can reach their peak. And that can be, early 20s. It depends what sport it is.
Yeah.
But it could be just like early 20s. That's it. And some sports, up to 35, but you're an old grandma when you're in your 30s and you're an athlete most of the time.
Just as well I've got no ambitions in that area. It's way too late.
Or not. As I said, there's more athletes pushing the limits and still competing at Olympics and Com Games, and nationals and things like that well beyond their 30s. But it just depends what sport and what genetics you have as well, I think. But the thing is, they were bantering, they were chatting, and I was kind of part of the conversation, but I was taking more, enjoyment out of just listening to what she was saying. And she just said, look, honestly, my truth is he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it to that elite level. And her reasoning why is the thing is he wants to do it. He wants to do everything. He wants to live the life of a normal, late teens, early 20s young man. And he wants to go out with his friends. He wants to have a few drinks and go to a few parties, but also train and become an elite athlete. And she said, you know what? You can't have it all. If you want to be at an elite level, you need to be focused. That's it. Your life is training. She said, friends go, come out. And you go, no, I need to be in bed at 8:30. Because I've been training all day. Or, come out and have a couple of drinks. Well, I can come out for a couple of hours, but I'm not drinking because that will hinder my performance tomorrow. So the point was you need to focus fully on what you're doing to get to the level that you see in your mind. Now, as I said, it's a little bit different for athletes because they have a small window of success, so to speak. Once they, do you see, even now, it's a lot of the swimmers, they retire at a certain age. You don't see Hayley Lewis in the pool anymore, except on Biggest Loser, So, yeah, the same relates to business. And it's not that the good thing about business is there isn't a small window for opportunity. You can start a business in your 60s or 70s, which is amazing. It's awesome. But depending on how much you commit to the business or creating what it is you really want to create, it shows up, or it can show up in how quickly you make way and create progress in the business.
I think that's absolutely true, and it's a conversation that I have with a lot of people, and I've had with myself as well. It's when you look at that full cycle, that full circle of your life, and what part does your business play in your life? For some people, and this is the beauty of choice, their business is their life. They may be single, they don't have responsibilities outside of their own desires at this life stage, and so that they can pour all of their energy, all of their attention, all of their focus into the business, and therefore they can grow it more rapidly as a result. Now, I know we're going to be talking in overall terms here. Obviously, it's we're not going to be going into specific individual examples, but you contrast that with, say, a woman who's in her mid-30s and she has small children and she's juggling a lot on top of the fledgling business that she's building on the side as well. Being able to split our focus across all areas means there has to be compromise in some of those areas. And I really don't want that to be seen as a defeatist sort of perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, look, it goes to that. You can only fit so much water in a glass, right? Before it starts overflowing. And we do. We have so many different areas of ourselves for a start. How much time are you spending on health and fitness and nurturing your spiritual self? We got families, friends that want to see you, all of these different parts of yourself for a start, and then all these different parts of life. So it's like, well, how do I juggle all of this?
This is where the real choices come in, I guess. I often ask people, what role does the business play in your life? From a financial perspective, because that's a big piece as well. For some people, they're in a situation where they don't have to work. They have a relationship where perhaps the person that they're with provides more of the traditional income support, but they have that real strong desire to contribute and to give back. And so the business plays a very high role of importance in their feeling of fulfillment and contribution, but it's not so high in terms of income generation. Then on the other end of the spectrum, I have some clients and friends who are single mums, and the financial imperative of generating income in the business has a much higher degree of importance, and they have to balance that obviously with the fulfillment. But you can see that there's different ends of the spectrum, and everyone sits at some different point on that continuum. Yeah. And I guess that part of this is making that decision: where does this business fit in my life, and what role does it play? Because that will then impact on that timetable of success and how it's going to impact upon you.
That's right. And this is a thing, what does it mean to me? What is this business? Is it literally a business venture? Some people get into businesses they're not passionate about, but they know they're going to make money. Is this, like you mentioned before, this is my life. This is who I am. My business is an extension of me. And I've read articles where it's like you have to kind of separate your business from yourself, but do you really have to when your business is you? Like, I get separate the business dealings, sometimes it's 10:30 at night while your partner's yelling out, "Come to bed." "Oh, I'm just doing my bad statement," But then, or is it a lifestyle thing? Like, I want to contribute, and this is the channel that I'm able to contribute to society and share my gifts with the world. You know, so businesses mean different things to different people. So obviously where they're going to fit in our lives is going to correlate with what the business means to us and what we are envisioning getting out of our business.
So that's really, I reckon, then the first step. I mean, if we're talking about women in particular, a lot of our listeners here on the Next Chapter podcast are at that stage, the next chapter. It's when some of our responsibilities, while still there, the dial's been turned down a bit. You know, I've shared how my son just started at university last weekend, and so he's now in another state. And a big chunk of my time, which was wrapped around being his mum, I'm still his mum, but the volume's turned down. So that means some more space has opened up in my world. Still have my gorgeous daughter at home. So, you know, the focus is still there as well. But there's that bit of extra space that's opened up. And what am I going to choose to fill that space? Is it going to be that I'll be taking some more time into the development and the promotion and the visibility of my business? Or am I going to start yoga? I mean, it's those
or you're going to
start
whining and dining with your husband, you know.
So that's the place to start, isn't it? It's like, okay, first make the decision, what role do I want this business to play in my life? And that's got to be where you start, I believe, creating those goals.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because like everybody, well, I don't know if everybody does, but most people set out, I'm going to do this. I've heard a story that this woman did this and she's earning $1 million a month and this is what I want to do too. You know, and it's easy, you know, to get caught up in that. But you need to rewind from that a little bit because it takes time. And remember, I'm sure we've talked about it before, overnight successes are never really overnight successes. And there's problems that come with overnight successes. So, yeah, just really rewinding it and getting clear about, what it is, why, and creating realistic expectations set around how much time you have to invest into your business.
That's a really key one, the realistic expectations and the time piece, because I know that a lot of women that I speak to have set themselves really high goals in the masterminds. We call it goal smuggling, when I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this by the time, you know, we next speak in 2 weeks, and you look at the list and go, really? I mean, that's a bit superhuman there. But and putting those sort of expectations on ourselves, and then if we don't actually reach the goals, you know, we don't tend to blame externally in those situations. We blame internally straight away, and it's like, I'm this and I'm that and I didn't, and you start to beat yourself up. And when you do that, it's not conducive then to creating the self-belief to move towards your next goals. So I think we actually shoot ourselves in the foot by having those unrealistic expectations of what is possible. And look, I'm not suggesting for a moment that we all aim low, because that way you'll hit the target. I'm not encouraging that. What I'm encouraging is realistic thinking, which you've taught me in a huge way, because I'm definitely a person who's rather hard on herself. Would you say?
No. And you've been an achiever, you know, throughout even your younger years. You've achieved. And we get a lot of people want to create success because they want to create that sense of achievement, and it's just intrinsically built into us. You know, you don't set out, what am I going to do with my life? I just want to be a loser and like lounge around the house. Like most people don't have those goals for themselves, but a lot of people, they want to achieve because there's so much plugged into the achievement. But we're also told from a young age, you know, go on Facebook, scroll down 3 posts, there'll be some inspirational saying that says, you know, you can do anything. And then when whatever your anything isn't happening, you're like, well, I can't do anything. And I can't do everything. Because we're trying to do everything a lot of the time.
I think that point that you're making there, and this is one of the ones that needs to be brought out on the table and talked about, is the comparison trap that we fall into, especially in the age of social media that we have. And as you were mentioning at the start, what we see other people doing, and I made $1 million in the last 12 minutes type thing. And I actually talk about this as being the jackpot effect. Like, there are so many of us that are starting businesses, and that is fantastic, because what's happened with the world today, it's an interesting thing to say, but the barriers to entry in a lot of business concepts have completely lowered. The internet really opened a whole new world for us all, especially if you're running, as we are, service-based businesses. Suddenly the whole world is open to us. I started my business back in 2003 with a laptop and a business card. So, not a lot of capital expenditure. So we're all out there, and we can see so much more about what's going on, and we fall into the comparison trap when we see the outsides of people's businesses, but we don't see the inside piece. So the jackpot effect, as I see it, happens when we've all heard of somebody like us that's had this immense success, seemingly so quickly. They've cracked the code, so to speak. And that jackpot effect makes us feel inside, well, maybe it's possible for me too. And what I see as a problem is we don't stop and check in and say, is that success that I'm seeing over there, does that actually fit me? Is that what I actually want for myself?
Yeah.
Because the real story behind it is that, as we were touching on before, if you have massive success in one area of your life, then it means you need to let go to an extent of some other area. And I remember having this massive realization last year, because comparison queen is my inner critic. She hounds me and just waggles other people in front of my face. So I'm very aware of that now. And I had this epiphany sort of moment. I'd been watching this particular person who is very successful in my type of field, and I was comparing and faring rather badly by comparison. And then I had that moment of recognizing not just the fact that she's significantly younger than me, without a husband and without children, and so her ability to travel and to do the things that she's doing was not compromised by the responsibilities at home. So I had to acknowledge there was a bit of envy there, definitely a bit of envy. But when my realistic thinking came in, and I recognized, well, that success, whilst it looks fabulous, is not for me at this stage of life. Would I want that? And when I actually recognized that, well, actually no, then I could let it go with a great deal of grace. So what's been your experiences with your clients and things that you've come across with helping people move through that comparison trap?
Well, there's so many, and then there's so many different stories, because on some level, most people do this. It's like, well, they've got what it takes and I don't. So it's like, my job is to facilitate you realizing that you have everything that they have. It's just in your own unique way. But this is the thing, like, going back to that, comparison trap. It's like years ago, because when people aren't sharing, like, on social media, they're not, sharing and divulging in blogs. What did we have? We had shop fronts. And you can't walk past a shop front and know how successful the owner is. Half the time you could go in and never even talk to the owner. So there was always like a barrier, I suppose, between perception and what really was going on. But I believe there still is that barrier, because we never really know what's going on. But now with social media and blogs, and people are sharing their insides basically on their blogs and through social media, it's like it becomes more prevalent because you're finding out more information. So then you're able to you're not able to, but people do get into this, oh, but what about me syndrome? Well, but I've done that and I didn't get this result. What's wrong with me? Or it can be the opposite. Oh, what a loser. Like, she went and did this, this, and this, which I've done, and I got earned this much from that and she only earned this much. So we can use comparison both ways. We can use it to inflate ourselves, or we can also use it to like knock ourselves down. And it's probably no difference, like the comparison traps in business and creating success in your business, as what it is to women comparing themselves to models who have been airbrushed. It's an unrealistic expectation. I'm not 6'10" with legs 11. I've got short, stumpy legs, short body, no boobs. Like, I'm never going to look like Elle Macpherson. So I think what happens in business, we start doing what people do when it comes to comparing to models and magazine spreads and glossy magazines. People see the gloss of other people's businesses and start beating themselves up. And really the same ramifications as comparing yourself to some model that you're never going to be, and it's going to happen. You're going to feel down on yourself, and procrastination, hesitation, I'm not good enough. The same things happen. Exactly the same things happen. So which stops us in our tracks, yeah.
It does. So what's our antidote? I mean, I recognise that, for example, when I'm on social media and I'm scrolling through, as we do, and I can put myself down a rabbit hole, but I can recognise the feeling now. I can feel the constriction that starts to happen in me, and so I know that I need to remove myself from that situation, because my little brain will start going, neck, 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 neck. So I recognise it and can remove myself. There's other things that I can do that I know will lift me back up. And I think one of them is the reverse gapping. It's looking at and appreciating how far you've actually come yourself and in your own business journey. I mean, I recommend everybody has a fabulous file, that evidence that you keep of your fabulosity, or your testimonials and your feedback, appreciation from your family, from your kids, from your clients, anything that shows you and reinforces to you and nurtures your spirit that you're in the right place, you're moving forward, you're doing well, you've come a long way from when you started. Like those little things, or I can just put on some 80s dance music and lift my spirits again.
That's it.
That one helps. But so I recognize when it's happening now, and I can remove myself from it 9 times out of 10. What other sort of tips or insights do you give for removing yourself or dealing with it when those unrealistic comparisons and expectations come creeping in?
Well, I'll just share my own little process, I suppose you could say. The first thing, especially if it's a social media thing, just going, is that really what's happening? Because we've spoken before, and people have said to you, oh my God, Angela, you're so amazing. You got all this stuff together. You're doing this and you're doing that. And then you've gone, oh my God, I don't even feel like, I can't live up to their expectations. Like, is that really going on? And people have said that to me. I met up with a friend at Christmas. She goes, oh my God, you're so lucky. Like, you have the best life. And I'm like, I haven't talked to you for like a year. Where did you get this from? And I'm like, she goes, oh, you get to, do what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, but like there's days that I get up and I'm freaking tired and it sucks. I'm still dragging my feet. And, it's because I didn't get enough sleep the night before. And then, my partner's bugging me because I've spent so much time in my business, seeing clients. The house is a mess, like all this stuff still goes on. And I just found it, I suppose, amusing that she was to say that to me. I'm like, me? What? Oh, really? Oh, thanks. But this is the reality of it. I still need to work. I still, all this kind of stuff happens still. So it's kind of like, if people are doing it to us, how many people are we doing it to? So asking myself, okay, this is what it looks like on the surface, but is this really what's going on? It's an illusion, right? I've just made an assumption. Our brains lie to us. Just so you know, our brains often lie to us. We lie to ourselves all the time. So getting that little reflection on myself, like, really, is this really what's going on? I don't really know. I don't have all the information, so I can't really make an assumption and move on. Or if I know specifically someone's done something amazing in some area, and it's like, well, where's my area of expertise? Where am I excelling and succeeding? Because everybody's succeeding at something right now, and everybody's failing at something right now.
Yeah,
remembering success doesn't always look how you think it's going to look.
That's an interesting concept there. So just dig down on that one a little more for me.
So, look, I'll give like a real life situation. Like, 10 years ago, I could never have thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now, living where I'm living now. And I have to stop sometimes, look around and go, wow, like this is pretty cool. I put in the hard yards, I've studied. I never stopped studying, mind you. I used to be a hairdresser. And my first goal after leaving that was like, I don't know what the hell I want to do. The first part was like, let's just find out what I want to do first. And then I dabbled in a few things, and then, it slowly kind of unfolds over time. But I could never, what I thought for myself, what success was going to look like back then, which it was in my limited 20-something-year-old thinking. Like, I already had a business. Like, when I was 21, I bought a bricks-and-mortar hairdressing salon. I was creating what I thought was success. But at the same time, as I was building my business, my health was suffering. So is that success? Like what we're talking about before. Like, when you're fully focused on one thing, other things, there's a deficit. So to sit back and go, I am already successful, and own that right now, because you'll get to a goal, and what happens? How do you feel? I'll set another goal. Like, it's never the end. And some people think they're going to get to this end point where I'm fulfilled, or I'm suddenly enlightened, or I'm suddenly going to feel worthy, or whatever it is.
Oh, this one here, this point you're making here, I think is such a vital one. That idea of stopping right now and owning the concept of success right now. I remember us talking about that last year, and that really resonated with me. The concept that, one of what I see as my purpose overall in life is to inspire. Like that's it. Yeah. In a nutshell, it's to inspire. It's to help people with clarity and with confidence, with the self-worth and then the business skills. And I have this lofty goal of what that looks like, and being brought back to task right now and being told, but you're doing that right now.
That's it. Work out every day. Who did I inspire today? Who got a little bit more clarity because of a conversation we had? Who got a little bit more confidence because of a podcast I listened to that I put out there? Like, you're successful every day.
And that's the thing, isn't it? So when we're talking about the timetable of success, it's also the size of that success, if I may be so bold to say that. I mean, we've all got different goals, but if we can anchor ourselves into the fact that we are actually doing what we want to do now, we're having that impact now. So all you're talking about over time really is magnification of it. But if we owned the fact it's happening now, that would help us with the overall momentum that we're building. Because I think we discount, like women, particularly when I touched on reverse gapping before, we're so focused on where we haven't got yet that we forget to turn around and appreciate what we have achieved to date. And I swear, if we did that more often, that would give us more of that confidence foundation, more of that self-belief foundation, another brick in the wall, another brick in the wall. Wow, I'm building this thing, whatever it is. And I like how you also talked about how, success changes over time. I mean, with you having your bricks and mortar business and being a hairdresser and having a wonderfully thriving business, tick the boxes. Okay, I can retire now. But
whoop-de-doo. That's what I felt like. I'm like, okay, everyone's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, really? Oh, cool, whatever.
And so it evolves. What our definition of a success evolves over time. And I think one of the things that we forget is, like, when I stopped my marketing agency back in 2012, and thought, okay, next chapter, as I now am calling it. What's my next chapter? I could never at that stage have imagined where I am today. We can't project ourselves into the future in that way. We don't have the crystal balls, but when I look back with hindsight, I can see where the steps, I went there and then that happened, so I went there and then that happened, and I can see the winding path. But it's finding that spot between the action and the allowing, because we can't control everything. And so our definition of what feels good, what our goals are, what our new success is going to be, will just evolve. And I think that's such an important part, that it's a story that's going to change over time. And that's why the timetable notion, you've got to let go of it to a large extent. But then you've got that. How do I fight with my brain? Because letting go, yes, but...
Does that mean I'm being lazy? Or, all these other things come up. That's right.
Yeah, so it's that...
I'm not working
dance.
hard enough. It's me. It's not them. It's me. And I think exactly what you're saying now brings us to the next part of the puzzle, which is trust.
Yep.
And I suppose, I think we chatted a little bit about this in our last conversation, because it ties in with goals, and goals tie in with success, right? Because you need to kind of meet mini milestones every day. But sometimes you just got to trust the process a little bit. Like, okay, well, I didn't do this in this time. Does that mean I don't do it? Or, I set out to achieve X, Y, Z, and you know what? I don't like how it fits. It doesn't feel good. It's icky. It's just taking up all of my time. Yeah, I've done this, but that's not right. Like, as I said, even years ago when I was a hairdresser, it was like I created this business and it was thriving and I was doing well at a young age. And it was like, this doesn't feel like what I should be doing. It's all going to plan, so to speak, but some little whisper is in there saying, why are you doing this? Like, this is not where you're meant to be. So it's trusting that there's going to be lots of, windy roads on the way. Remembering that as long as you set out and you're following that you are creating success every single day. But there's also like a little saying, which I love, and it came into my head the other day. Nature doesn't rush, but yet she gets everything done. In nature, trust. Nature doesn't push against things. Nature just happens. Now, it's easy to say that because as human beings, we need to create a little bit of a vision where we want to go. We need to, set realistic goals and expectations and be able to meet them along the way. But we have to remember that it's a process. Success is a process and not a destination necessarily. Yes, and just trust that it is going to happen.
I think this has got a lot to do with the difference between having a plan that is set in stone versus a plan that is malleable, that is flexible, that responds to what happens along the way. I always like the concept of frameworks, and I talk about them a lot, like having a framework for your business, having a framework for your 90-day plan that you're working on, but it's not a straitjacket, so it's responsive. So, and this is where I think the biggest skill that we can develop as women in business and women in our next chapters is trust, is recognizing that the decisions that we make that honor us, the ones that come from us internally rather than being influenced by what we think we should do. I mean, this is a conversation that's had every moment of every day around the world. This is not rocket science, but this is the reason these conversations happen so often is because they're so true. So what feels right for you? And I know for myself, I've moved through life with a tremendous sense of urgency far too often, with that feeling of everything has to happen and has to happen now. And if it's not happening now, then yes, my bugbear is I'm lazy. I think that's got something to do with growing up on a farm in New Zealand. Like, don't sit around and read a book. Get your ass up and out there and feed the cows.
There's things to be done.
As always.
Or my dad, it was like if you had a sick day at school, every 5 minutes he'd walk past, you don't look sick. Why aren't you at school? You could go. You could go now. It's lunchtime. You've got the afternoon. Dad, I'm throwing up. Like, I'm actually sick today,
So, and I think your dad and my dad must have had some sort of genetic connection there, because it certainly happened in my world as well. But there is that, because, and let's be honest, the pace of life. I mean, we can have the perspective that the pace of life has gone really fast, and we can say, look, it's just an illusion. But a big part of it is real, because everything happens so quickly today. The instant gratification. Even my husband was talking last night about being the trustee, a joint trustee on his dad's will with his brother over in England and a solicitor. And his dad originally was concerned about that, because it's like, the tyranny of distance. But as Graham pointed out, there is no tyranny of distance. We can be on a Skype conference call in seconds. So the world literally seconds. So the world has opened up. The barriers have dropped down. The pace of life has increased enormously. And we seem to have responded to that pace in all ways. Well, my business has got to grow quicker, and my list has got to get bigger, and and everything has that sense of urgency. Now, I can only speak from my own perspective, because I can't speak for everybody, but that feeling does seem to be prevalent. And what happens is that we then get down on ourselves, because we've got some sort of self-imposed deadline expectation of when success should have happened. And I think that's what trips us up so much. So if we can let go a little, if we can soften the boundaries or the edges a little and lean into what's feeling right and follow that, my strong belief is that things start to fall into place. Now, that's it. I think it's the knowing what you want and knowing why you're doing it, but being open to the how. How.
And seeing everything is on the way.
I love this one.
This is a part of. This is not removed from my success. This is part of the success. And I was telling you earlier, there was a story that I'm sharing with people at the moment in my yoga classes, and it's a quick. I'll share it with you now. It's really kind of quick, and it sums up what I just said. Like, it's learning that this is it. This is what success is in a nutshell. So, an enlightened teacher told his disciples, "Whoever makes an effort can attain enlightenment in just 7 days. If he can't seem to manage that, certainly he would attain it in 7 months, or perhaps even 7 years." A young man decided that he would attain it in just 1 week. He was excited, and he wanted to know what he should do. So he asked his teacher. The reply was concentration. The young man began to practice and practice and practice, but in 10 minutes he was already distracted. Little by little, he began just paying attention to everything that distracted him. And at first he thought maybe he was wasting his time, but then he changed his mind, because he realized he was getting used to himself. He was learning about himself. He was noticing the world around him. One fine day he decided, you know what? It wasn't necessary to arrive at his goal so fast, because the path was teaching him so many things. And at that moment, he became enlightened.
I do like that. And that's got so much to do with that concept that we touched on before of hindsight. That if we actually look back and recognize the moves that we have made and the impact that we are having, that buoys us up and allows us to let go a little. It's when it comes to the storytelling part. And I touched on this one before we hit record, that I was at a networking event earlier in the week and sat with a gorgeous woman who was actually a client about, I think it was about 3.5 years ago. And at that stage, she had this sparkling idea of a business that she wanted to create. It was a real wholehearted concept. It was beautiful. And it's the first time I've seen her in all of this time. And she brought with her to the event the journals. I'm not going to tell you all the details about them because I'm going to interview her because I think she's fabulous.
Awesome.
And so we'll keep it for that one in a few weeks. But a part of her was going, oh, it's taken so long. It's like this should have happened so much quicker. And then we had that little conversation about it of that, but where was the timetable? You know, it was a self-imposed sort of deadline. When you actually looked at the finished product and heard the story of where it came from and how it came about, it's perfect. I mean, it was literally unfolding in divine timing. And so success in that respect is part of the journey, as you were just pointing out, because everything she discovered and learned and expanded from on the way has made it, you know, a rich and deep flavored, you know, success at this stage.
Yes. That's it. The wine that matures over time is so much more bold and rich than the one that is just pumped out and sculled down.
Absolutely. And so it's hard for us sometimes, isn't it, to sort of to let go and to accept where we are and to keep on taking action. Like I said, I'm not saying that, look, just, you know, sit here and and manifest success. No, we gotta take action. But let's just be a little more gentle on our deadlines, hey?
Yeah. And I like exactly what you just said, like trust, that those two words, divine timing, kind of plug right into that, the trust component, because, you know, remembering we are basically nature and a part of nature as well. And look, I even kind of use my, you know, pregnancy and getting pregnant journey as like a metaphor for our businesses as well. You know, it took us, you know, 4 years. And at the time of this podcast, you know, I'm 24 weeks pregnant or something like that, 23 maybe. I'm jumping the gun. And it, you know, 3 miscarriages later, you know, you can't make something happen that's not ready to happen. You know, and people were saying, oh, go get IVF, go do this, go do that. And it's like, you know what? I just have this deep feeling that it is a process. There's stuff I need to learn. There's stuff in our relationship that significantly changed for the better because of all the happenings in the past 4 years. So to look back with what, you know, you call it kind sight, not necessarily hindsight, but and go, you know what, this is the way it needed to be. And the whole time I had a sense of trust, and a lot of other people had a sense of urgency. Go get checked, go do IVF, go and do this, go and do that. And I'm just like, you know what, when it's ready, it will come. And that's not saying, like you said, I sat around doing nothing. Like, I made use of my time. Is there something that I could be doing to help this? So, you know, I changed my diet. I started managing some things that were stressing me and actually facing them. Like, I did a lot of things. And I also went, you know what, I've got time. So I started studying again. So then looking back, I'm like, well, if these things didn't happen in the timing that they did, I wouldn't have this, you know, qualification. I wouldn't have started this part of my business. Our relationship wouldn't be where it was. Like, there's all these things plugged into it. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way.
Trust is such a big one, and you know, we can scream at ourselves sometimes of, you know, that's all very well having that beautiful trust, but I need it now. I need this to change now, and that's the hardest part, I think, for us to break through and to settle into, is that there is divine timing. There is marketing plans, absolutely. I write them all the time, but there is also that letting go. And that recognizing that you need that flexibility, you need to recognize that part of the journey to success is success itself. And oh my goodness, this is a subject you could just wind in and out of forever, because it's got so many layers to it. But I guess, you know, ultimately what we're saying is relax.
Yes. take a chill pill, sister, because, you know, it's all good. And this is the thing. Who says doing things at 100 mile an hour are going to get you there any quicker?
I mean, if you just talk about the general idea of focus, we know that if we keep switching our focus from thing to thing to thing, then you get out of flow, and it takes a while to get back into that flow. So even something as simple as, I was trying to write a blog post a wee while ago, but I also had like 4 different browsers open and my phone and everything, and like your focus is shattered. Your focus is shattered. Right. So it's that letting go. It's the being clear on where it is that you're going, but trusting and recognizing and acknowledging and appreciating that you're making steps every single day. And celebrating those. Don't just go the big lofty goals. Celebrate every step that you make on a general day. I mean, I'd love to see or hear everybody at the end of a working day just to pause and to acknowledge what it is that you have actually achieved that day. Mightn't be everything that you wanted, but I guarantee that there is some nuggets of gold in the activity that you've done.
You've made way, you know. And
yes.
This is the thing, and being aware of yourself and what you are learning in the process of achieving, and really working on your highest priority action items. You know, a lot of people dabble in the little stuff thinking that that's going to get them, you know, further along, but it's really going, you know what do I really need to be working on now? What's most important today? Because as you know, we can have 1,000 different browsers in our head open. We can have 1,000 different browsers on our computer open and get constantly being distracted by our minds and our computers and our surrounds and all of that kind of stuff. But just learning the art of coming back to what it is you really want to be focused on.
And if you take that up to the next level, that's what is your vision? Because success is very, very personal. The impact that you want to make, the background that you've had, the experiences that you've had, the lessons that you've learned, the talents you've developed that you're choosing to share in this next chapter business, that's very personal. So I think if we keep connecting back to our vision, why we're doing this, that's when we can recognize that success is happening every single day. And that's what I want for everybody, that recognition of the progress that you're making both personally and professionally, because my God, the two are so entwined.
Collecting your gems daily and not waiting for that one big hit at the end. I achieved this. Because a lot of people I know, when they achieve what they set out to do, they go, oh yeah, I achieved that. That was awesome. And I celebrated. But then today I'm just like, yeah, so what? Like, whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
We're back at square one again. So I think it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. And I think the most important thing is that if you are journeying alongside that thing that you find is so important to you, so the reason behind why you're doing what you do, then you get that feeling of satisfaction if you stay connected to that vision the whole way along. So yeah, there is no timetable for success. So just keep on moving and sharing what you're doing and celebrating, the little goals that you have achieved along the way. And that gives you your future fuel so that you can keep moving forward at your own pace without looking at what everybody else is doing. Though you can take inspiration from them. It doesn't always have to be feeling down when you see how someone else is inverted commas succeeding. But just take a pause and connect back to your why, because that's the thing that we're always pursuing and we're always expanding into.
We are, and there's just popped into my head. Until we are grateful for what we have now, why do we expect to get more?
Words to live by.
Sometimes you just got to stop where you are, take in the view, so to speak. And this is when you're comparing as well. And, they've done this, they've done that. Well, then you say, great, they've done a lot. What have I done? And enjoy that moment or reflect it back. And then that will give you fuel to move forward. Whereas when you compare and go, oh, look what they've done, I haven't, then that drains your fuel. So it's energy draining. It's not inspiring. It's not building up. It's tearing down. Yeah. So
and we don't need that. Take a breath. Do it today. Take a breath. Like, go outside or sit down for a moment and reflect on how far you have come because your timetable for success is different from everybody else's, and that is absolutely fine. Well, thank you for your time today, and I hope for those who are listening that there is some nuggets here that you can connect to, and you can feel the truth in them, and you can define success on your terms, and you can create your own timetable in your next chapter. That's what it's all about. So thank you so much, Larissa.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving me a platform to speak out and share some of this juicy stuff I've learned in my collection of gems over the years. So thank you, Angela, and thanks everybody for listening.
And we will be back again next month with a conversation between the two of us. So have a great day. And thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning into the Next Chapter podcast. I know that the time that you have is precious, and for you to invest it in listening to our conversations and taking away those little snippets that you can then go and put into action, that you can recognize that the journey that you're on in your next chapter is so unique and so layered and so multi-textured that it can only be your story, and I'd love to hear more about it. So let's connect again really soon on the next episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspass.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.